the earlier examples I've transcribed, Simpson's pipe organ music for Image of the Fendahl is occasionally integrated with his usual ensemble of horns and clarinets and percussion. Yet, the music of Thea's transformation is squarely centered on the pipe organ and its duet with the unearthly sounds of a synthesizer. The pipe organ is usually associated with scenes in the cellar of the priory, where Steil and the coven hold the ritual to transform Thea into the Fendahl core. Though there are several preceding scenes that use pipe organ, my arrangement begins with the 3 cellar scenes leading up to, but not part of, the cliffhanger of part 3, a cliffhanger which became one of my earliest memories of Doctor Who. In the first scene, Steil activates the sonic time scanner, the lights dim, and he comes forward to proclaim, "The way to power is open!" The arrangement begins here because this is the first time what I will call the transformation motive is heard. It's made of 2 pairs of parallel major triads blurred together by the damper pedal and is quite easy to hear throughout. For example, the first version begins in the second measure with, over an A-flat organ pedal, A-flat major rising to B-flat major, a whole step apart. Then, one more A-flat major rising now to D major, a tritone apart, and that chord relationship puts this pair squarely into octatonic harmony. This transformation motive is next transposed up a whole step to B-flat major. As we will shortly see, whole step transposition, rising as Thea transfigures, is a clear character element of this music. To complete this short clip, a variation of the transformation motive begins on C, and with the rising dynamics, the organ's rich timbre is revealed. So I thickened the texture with super low bass and supporting left-hand notes to fill out the harmony. As this variation peaks on E major, the pedal bass lands on D, and the organ gives way with some quiet falling triads as Steil makes his proclamation. The second short scene underscores Thea, her bonds giving way, stretching her arms out in readiness. This chorale sequence recalls earlier scenes not included in my arrangement, where the organ is a background mood element. The melody, mainly in short-long pairs, slowly stretches and rises through inverted major chords and parallel minor chords. We settle on a resolute E minor, and with everything ready, there is a deliberate moment of silence. The third, also short scene, sees the transformation begin as the pentagram, with Thea lying in the center, begins glowing with light. The music here is a virtual repeat of the transformation motive on A-flat and B-flat as before, with the B-flat rhythm stretched 2 beats longer. More importantly, a new harmonized counter melody by the unearthly sounding synthesizer responds to the motive. The unearthliness of the timbre is compounded by the notes. As A-flat major and D major harmony ring together, the counter melody is in the key of D major, more specifically the Lydian mode, a very bright coloration. This gives each of these motives a bitonality, a sense of being in both keys, A-flat and D major at once. The rest of the music comes from a single scene at the beginning of part 4, and this long passage can be divided into 4 segments. It's here that Simpson's horn ensemble can be heard unobtrusively supporting the organ. First, the transformation turns Thea into a gilded angel of death, as if her DNA were being rewritten from toe to head before our eyes. The transformation motive with counter melody is heard 4 times, starting on C bass, rising up a whole step as before. Noticeably different is the first pair of chords, which here rise from C major to D flat major, only a half-step interval this time. This interval is retained for the E major and F sharp major versions, but not for the D major version, which rises by a whole step just as the original motive did earlier. A 2-beat compacted motive on G major completes this first segment, and is a surprise dominant tonic, that is 5-1, resolution to the next segment. How very quaint. The second segment sees Thea, now and forever the Fendahl core, lift herself from her recumbent position to her feet, totally by her awesome mental power, without seeming to move a muscle. With a thicker piano orchestration, the transformation motive begins again on C, heard 6 times, rising again in whole steps. The first 4 virtually copy the previous segment, but a major difference is a shift to triple rhythm. Yet, the counter melody often darts between triple and duple rhythm, and in a much more florid style. This isn't quite a metric modulation of the type I discussed in my last episode, the sand minor, but the idea is much the same. Also notable is that the D major version's first pair of chords matches the half-step interval of the others. The final 2 motives are in their original harmonies, A-flat major and B-flat major. As the piece climaxes, I elected to expand the orchestration further with booming octave basses and the counter melody doubled in both hands in the heights of the piano. A surprise to me is the bass adding a very low B natural in opposition to the B-flat major harmony, but in consonance with the E major harmony. Again, this B serves as a dominant to the coming tonic, E. The third segment begins with Colby, still tied to a pillar, reacting in horror at the sight of his friend's metamorphosis. Over a bass of E, then C, parallel major triads seem to flutter down abjectly. We again see Fendahl Thea, implacable, beautiful, and terrifying, and one final complete transformation motive on C with octatonic countermelody is heard. Slowly, Fendahl Thea turns to point towards one of the coven, and as she does so, the bass and chords intensify and a mini motive of half-step or whole-step pairs of chords take over. These bass and chords do not always agree, creating further intensity. The recent revision of my arrangement added the counter melody above all this bass and chord intensity. I originally excluded it for being too complicated, but after some experimentation and some willingness to shift some rhythms, I was able to put the left hand in charge of both the low chords and the counter melody. Clearly some almost literal juggling is involved. By the end of this passage, the staggered chords meet at D major, but now my arrangement diverges from the program. The arrangement has a strong momentum at this point, but the following less organ-based music of Fendahl Thea turning coven members into essentially baby Fendahl didn't seem appropriate to include. Another couple of transformation motives are heard in this excised passage. At the conclusion of the scene, Steil has realized his fatal mistake, and as we zoom into Fendahl Thea, her face forced into an awkward but satisfied smile, 2 final half-step pairs of chords shoot up serendipitously from D major. The coda is a devastating blur of 3 half-step major triads, B, C, and D flat, and for one of the only times, the horns are strongly represented with the C major blast in the middle. A final button chord in the horns, A minor, dovetails into the next scene, but again, not appropriate. I'm not in the habit of picking favorites amongst my arrangements, but this one, I will admit, would have to be up there. I really appreciate the richness and simplicity of the transformation motive and its development by increased ornamentation, as well as the wide dynamic range that the piano can generate. And, as you know, I love me some dissonance made of consonants. With the transformation complete, I thank you for watching episode 34, part 2 of the Dudley Simpson is Doctor Who project. More music from season 15 to come next time. Subscribe, like, share, and comment. See you then.